Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
The story.
I had spoken about my career and how I felt like it all kind of went away, but he somehow found a way to get me back on track completely out of the blue. And I feel like we always think that God doesn't care about these tiny details in our lives, but God cares about every little thing that we care about.
G'day, I'm Jimmy Colefax. Welcome to The Story. Well, today we have part 3 of our conversation with Dr. Mirette Abraham, who's the author of the book Mama, I See You, Finding Glimmers of Hope in the Trenches of Motherhood. On the past couple of programs, we heard about Mirette's battle with anxiety and depression that began shortly after becoming a mother. She also shared how it caused her to question God and her relationship with Him. Well, today, Mirette continues to share her life journey and the special ways that God continues to lead her out of spiritual darkness. Once again, Mirette is chatting with Eric Scatterbo from her home in Sydney.
We are all struggling. And what you see on Instagram is really just the highlight reel of someone's life. Why would someone post something that brings them sadness or something that doesn't bring them likes or doesn't bring shares? Or, it's all become about exposure and how much attention I can attract. And unfortunately, the negative doesn't attract nearly as much attention as the positive. And even, you've got this movement of people trying to post real photos on Instagram. And I put real in, inverted commas, like it's not real when you're taking 10 of the same photo and trying to pick one that has the best lighting or one that kind of your kids look cuter in. It's not real life.
This is exactly what I do, by the way, but thank you very much for the criticism.
Post the real
but I
stuff.
take your point, yes.
and it just we see these images and we look at our own lives and our own kitchens and our own kids, and we're like, this is not what it looks like. A mum who's got 5 or 6 kids, all under the age of 5 or 6, and her house is immaculate. That's sometimes, and most of the time, not real life for a lot of us, and it's difficult to kind of prioritize those sort of things.
Well, but not to
kids.
mention, you're a doctor. You got stuff going on. There's a lot going on besides your kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
Give yourself a break, okay?
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's unfortunately, that's the reality of, being a mum, and even more so being a working mum, trying to think of a juggle and how to, overcome the issues with juggling things. And it's just the mental load and the mental burden becomes heavy, and you cry out for someone to help you with it, but we never actually say it out loud. We never ask for the help that we need. And, to any mum listening or any woman listening, the burdens that we carry are huge, but you're not alone in your burdens. We're all struggling with something. And what I may show you on my Instagram is not necessarily the reality of what I'm dealing with at home. Everybody has their crosses. Everybody has their difficulties that they're navigating. And I think working in the hospital and working with patients of different backgrounds and different walks of life has also given me, that insight.
Yeah.
A lot of people look put together, but they walk through the door and the diagnosis.
Oh, the other side of the story, right?
Yeah.
Because they talk to you behind closed doors about challenges.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Now, you had an encounter with one patient in particular that I'd like you to share with us about.
Yeah. Actually, this patient came, right at the start of my decision to kind of seek healing and to get better and to seek out the Lord again. And I was on the wards. Actually, it was a weekend. It was a Saturday, I believe. And we have weekend ward rounds that we have to do just to make sure that our own patients are stable and they're okay for the weekend, because there aren't many doctors on. And so I had done my round. I had seen all my patients, and any doctor who does a weekend ward round, you just want to get in and out as quickly as possible, get back home, no hiccups. Every time I've done one of those weekend rounds, I have spent the entire evening in the hospital because things have just not gone right. So this one, I'm like, no, I will in and out. I will finish quickly. And so I remember getting onto this ward for a second time when I had finished all the work. I don't actually remember why I came back onto the ward. And this man met me in the hallway on the corridor, and he he almost begged me to go and sit with his daughter. And I said, I'm a cancer doctor. I can't help you. She's not my patient. I don't even know what I do for her.
Yeah.
And he said, please just sit and talk to her. She needs someone to talk to. I said, all right. Again, I went into medicine as a service, as a ministry, and maybe this is part of the ministry. So I accepted the call and I went. And I sat with this lady and I asked her, how is she, her name, why is she in hospital? And it turns out she came into hospital after an overdose. And so she was being monitored in hospital. Thankfully, she was medically fine, but they needed to monitor her and give her the help that she needed before she left. And so I asked her, kind of took a big gulp, and I braved it up, and I asked her if she really wanted to end her life, if her overdose was a reflection of her wanting to not be here anymore. And she said, no, I just wanted the pain to go away. And so we got into how she's battled with a chronic illness. She's now a single mom of 2 young kids. She's got this pain. Again, nobody really knows the origin of the pain. And she's struggling, and she's in and out of hospital. And she just took all these painkillers to try and numb the pain, to try and stop her from feeling it anymore. And I remember her saying that to me, her saying that she just wanted the pain to go away, was the slap in the face that I needed. I could see how this, young lady was hurting herself, and she was hurting her parents and her kids, all because she innocently wanted this pain to go away. And so I am sitting in the chair opposite her thinking, God, how could you send me to help this woman when I'm almost in the exact same spot? I'm crying out for someone to take this pain away. I'm pushing people away. I'm hurting the people around me because I'm not getting the help that I need. And I've pushed you away, God. I've pushed you away, the one person who could really help me. And so her saying all that stuff back to me just woke me up. I looked her in the eye, and by then, I was crying right alongside with her. And I said, look, I understand the pain. I understand the isolation. And I'm right here. I'm struggling right here with you. How could we help each other? And so from that point, it was a wake-up call, because God sent me to see her. God sent me to talk to her. But how? How could you send me, God, when I am doing the exact same thing? How could you send me to minister to someone who really needs help when I need help? So at that point, I almost kind of stepped out of my skin. I said, I need to change things now. Nobody's going to come and get me out of this rut. Nobody's going to come and fix this unless I let them in. And so I needed to let God back in, and I needed to get the help that I needed to get better, to be able to serve his children more, to be able to serve my own child, who I feel like I had blamed for my predicament. And I just needed to turn things around. So it was no coincidence that I randomly ran into this man who begged me to talk to his daughter. God needed me to see what I'm needed for. God needed me to see that he's called me for more, that I'm here for more. I'm here for something eternal, an eternal work that I may not understand. And although my physical state feels like it's pulling me down in every single direction, I need to break free of the things that were holding me back.
And if God had answered your initial prayer to just take away the pain, you wouldn't have learned that.
I wouldn't have learned that, and I wouldn't have seen his grace in that period. I wouldn't have seen him meet me in the place of hurt. I wouldn't have known him the way I know him now. He is relentless. His love breaks down even the hardest of walls, no matter what you put up. He forgives over and over, and he will meet us in whatever pit we have landed in whatever state I have ended up in, no matter how far I've pushed him away, he will still meet me there. I just need to open my eyes and see him, and I need to find ways of finding him in my despair.
You're listening to The Story. Today, once again, Dr. Mirette Abraham is sharing her life journey and how the Lord gradually led her to a much deeper and more intimate relationship with Him. We'll hear more of her story and more of the insights she's learned when we return.
The Story. If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Colefax, and this is The Story. Once again, our guest is Dr. Mirette Abraham, who's the author of the book Mama, I See You, Finding Glimmers of Hope in the Trenches of Motherhood. As we've been hearing, Mirette struggled with depression and anxiety and found herself in a spiritual wilderness, questioning God and her relationship with Him. But we've also been hearing how God has been gradually leading Mirette out of darkness and into a more intimate and rich relationship with Him. Now, here's more of her conversation with Eric Scatterbo.
For those who don't know the story of Lazarus in the Bible, he was a friend of God's, he was a friend of Christ, and he was ill, and his sisters had called to Jesus saying, "Come, he's sick, please come and heal him." And he never came. And then he died. When Jesus, rocked up to the place, finally, the sisters were like, "You left, you didn't come, and now he's dead." And so Christ ends up raising Lazarus from the dead, and he calls him out of the tomb. So he calls him out of his darkness. He calls him out of his death, out of his pit. But Lazarus still had to make that walk out, in his half rotting flesh and his bandages. Lazarus had to get up and answer the call. There's still some onus on us. If I am suffering, if my mental health is suffering, I'm going to speak from the perspective of mental health. My mind, just like my body, needs nourishment, needs care, needs to be looked after. And if my mental health is suffering and I don't get the help that I needed, I may not ever feel better. And I need to seek out that help. God calls us and He meets us where we are, but we need to also accept that call. We need to say, "Yes, I'm here. Work. Do what you want with me. Where do you need me to be?" And so there is, I always, during that time, I did put a lot of responsibility on God. I put it all on Him, essentially. You're the reason that I'm not sleeping. You're the reason I'm in this pain. You're not getting me out of this. But I took away that responsibility from myself. When I started seeing Him and I started acknowledging His presence in my pit, in my struggle, then I could answer the call. Then I could actually walk back to Him and find my way and find my faith again and just find who I was now in this new light, what He needed me to do. And, along with all of that, I had spoken about my career and how I felt like it all kind of went away. But He somehow found a way to get me back on track completely out of the blue. And I'll just share this last story with you because I feel like we always think that God doesn't care about these tiny details in our lives, but God cares about every little thing that we care about. And He's here for it. Like I had pulled out of the training program, like I said earlier, and I thought that being a mum now, I could only get into, community medical work, be a general practitioner because the hours are better, and I'm, that's what all mums do in medicine. And so I tried to get into the general practitioner training 4 times. Eric, 4 times I tried, and 4 times I failed so miserably, and I kept failing worse with each time. I remember before my final exam, that day, the Friday, the exam was on the Saturday. On the Friday, I walked into work and I was just, I was annoyed and I just didn't want to do this exam. I didn't see a reason. I'm going to fail again. There's no point. And I get a phone call completely out of the blue of someone I hadn't spoken to in years, someone I had did a placement with back as a medical student, who called me and asked, any chance you're still interested in working with cancer patients?
Oh, wow.
And I said, look, I've always been interested, but there's no way back into the hospital for me. And he said, look, there's a spot that's opened up. It's not on the training program, but it's just to get some experience until then. Would you like me to hook you up with the people responsible so you can interview? Completely out of the blue. And from there, started my journey into cancer care, back into where I wanted to be.
Yeah, back in the beginning.
Back in the beginning. And why? There was no reason. God, I probably still would have found the healing I needed, and I still would have, my faith would have been improved some other way. And it makes no sense why God would care about something that seems so trivial.
But
he
it's not
cares.
trivial to him. No.
It's not trivial. No. And he cares. And, all this time I was waiting for him to send me my flowers, my little bouquet as a sorry. And he just kept dropping little beautiful, sweet, gestures along the way that could not be explained in any other way. This was God telling me, I'm here and I will care for the things that you care about. I just need you to care about you and come back. And I need you to show up for yourself. And so he kept calling me and kept giving me these sweet little messages and these sweet little love notes and slowly breaking down my walls again. And I truly, I when I tell you, I now understand his love, the unrelenting, violent nature of his love. I felt it. He barges in when nobody else does, and so sweetly and so unassuming, but he does. And I do really feel like all these cracks that I feel in my life, all these little holes and these struggles that I feel like gaps, parts that didn't serve him well, I want those cracks to reveal that love, to reveal that, relentless love of Christ. And that's the point of all this. That's the reason that book was published. And I feel like as sad as some parts are, even after I came to that realization, after I did, find God again and strengthen that relationship with him, we went through a miscarriage. We went through a loss with our second. And I remember the devastation of that. I remember feeling so upset by, again, a loss that I know was out of my hand, but still, as a mum, like I said, you carry this guilt for things that are completely out of your control. And I kept thinking, is it because I exercised this much? Is it because I run? Is it because I drank this or ate this? And you carry that guilt. And so through that loss, because I had that firm foundation and his love that carried me through all that time, that loss really did just mark another moment to see his grace and another point in my life to see him working. And, after that loss, actually, I personally had a cancer scare and we were investigating something down that track. But the whole time, when I tell you I was at peace with everything that was happening, it's true. I just felt okay. I felt like God's got this, regardless of whatever pain I may get physically. He's using this for more. He's using me for more. And this child that I lost is a child that's now in his arms. And, even though I didn't get to meet that kid, I got to be a part of that journey.
Yeah.
And so he does show his grace regardless of the circumstance.
As I'm listening to your story and hearing the journey that you've been on, that God has brought you on, you had an image and an idea of how God was, and you found out that's not how he is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to sum it up very succinctly, you learn he ain't like that, basically. And he's much better than you thought. Now, some people could say, well, you just needed to read a book on theology. No, the characteristics of God, this is what it is. Here's a dictionary definition. Or you could go on a journey like you did and not intellectually know it, but know it.
Yeah.
You know, your whole being, your whole soul know from experience that God does meet you in the depths of despair and is with you. And now you know it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like just with any other relationship we have, you know, before I met my husband, I could have read about him. I could have asked about him. I could have, you know, spoken to his parents and his friends and gotten to know the ins and outs of who he is.
Which I would strongly recommend, by the way.
Yeah. Well, yes, you should still do that.
Still do that, but it's still only going to take you so far.
Yeah, exactly. And I, you know, the first time we met, I could have come on really strong and said, I already know all of this about you. And unless I actually commit myself to a relationship of love, I will never get that emotional attachment to the person. And the same with God. We should read about him. We should learn about him. We should read his word. And we should be taking an interest in who he is, just as he takes an interest in us. Just that, offer that little bit of our mind to him. But if I don't have that emotional connection with him, all he is really is a fictional character that I've read about. But I need to make him real. And the way to make him real is to invite him in. Invite him in wherever you are.
Into
There's,
the dark
like
places.
I said, into the dark places. There's no shame that could separate us from him. Nothing could separate us from his love. Nothing.
Amen.
And so I need to make that choice to answer his call and to let him in. And so that he could let his light into my darkness and actually show me all the areas I need help with, show me all the areas of things I can improve on, and just learn to love him and learn to really love his sweetness.
But it doesn't end there. In our remaining moments, please tell us how you're helping others so they can go on a similar journey and get similar insights.
Yeah, so firstly, I hope whoever's listening has gathered that whatever you're going through, you are not alone.
Yep.
We are struggling together. We are all on this earth. You know, there's a verse in scripture that says, in this world you will have tribulation, right? That's Christ's promise almost.
It's going to happen.
We're not, It's going to happen. We're not promised cushy lifestyles and Instagrammable feeds. And, you know, that's not the promise.
I better get on Instagram. I'm not on there, but maybe it's better that I don't.
You should see what I'm talking about. You know, that's the promise is not that it's going to be easy. No.
Yep.
You know, we were never promised justice here. It doesn't make sense why a pregnancy would end so early. It doesn't make sense to our minds. There is no justice in that. But we know we're going to have trials, we know we're going to have tribulations, but we're all suffering together. And our lens needs to be eternal. The suffering can bring about joy that we could have never imagined.
Yeah.
We just need to allow him into that suffering. And so this book, for any mums who are struggling with that, not just struggling in a pit of despair or depression or anxiety or any other, you know, physical limitations and losses, but also just a loss of identity and a struggle with purpose. You know, I always struggle with my sense of purpose, and anyone who's struggling with that book is for you. It's written for you. And as hard as it was, you know, my entire heart is on those pages, and it took lots of courage to press send so that it can be published. Until now, you know, if
and then share on the radio
and share and be constantly triggered, but it's fine.
Sorry about that.
No, look, it's all part of the mission, and it's just to highlight that yes, I'm a doctor. Yes, I seemed like I had grown up in the faith. I had all the, you know, we call them protective factors against illness and disease and issues and mental health struggles. I had all the protective factors. I had everything working in my favor. And still, when I say I struggled, and I'm still struggling. And this walk that we're on in life, not just as mums, just as individuals trying to bear his light, it's a hard walk, and it is filled with tribulation, and it is filled with trials, and we have to just support each other. And so you'll find solace in the fact that, no, I don't have anything together. I'm held together by the grace of God, but that grace is there for you too. And that grace is there for everybody who accepts the call and just lets him in.
Amen. Mirette Abraham, Dr. Mirette Abraham, thank you so much for taking us along the journey that you've been on, because in some way, shape, or form, we've all been on that journey.
Thank you so much for having me. It was truly an honor and a privilege to speak with you, Eric. Thank you.
Well, that's the conclusion of Eric Scadabow's 3-part conversation with Dr. Mirette Abraham, who was born in Egypt but has lived in Sydney, Australia since she was 1 year old. And it was great to hear her spiritual journey and how step by step God led her to a more intimate and richer relationship with him. Also, it was great to hear how she is now helping others who may be struggling with similar issues related to motherhood. Once again, her book is Mama, I See You, Finding Glimmers of Hope in the Trenches of Motherhood. To learn more about her book and to listen to her podcast and read her blog, you can go to her website. It's mamamd.blog. Once again, that's mamamd.blog. As we've learned on Mirette's spiritual journey, we are not alone in our struggles. First of all, God is always there for us, and secondly, other people are there for us as well. We need to resist the temptation to bottle everything up that is bothering us. Rather, we should find trusted family and friends to share with who can lighten our load and encourage us. As the saying goes, a problem shared is a problem halved. Also, the Bible says that we are to pray for each other so that we may be healed. Well, thanks so much for joining us for Dr. Mirette Abraham's story of spiritual growth. I'm Jimmy Colefax, encouraging you to share your story with someone today.
Next time on The Story.
So they baptized 55 people in a river, and it was just amazing actually to see. And families went to the water with the people who been baptized. Kids in the same time was playing in the water, and I felt, that's as it should be. It was so much joy.
Originally from Hungary and has just come back from doing ministry work in Ukraine. She's a missionary to the Gypsy people in Hungary and neighbouring countries and was sent there by her church here in Australia. How did this all come about? We'll hear Gabby's story.
The Story. Just another way Vision is helping you look to God daily.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.